And a very good evening, Friday evening, just gone 6 o'clock. The first of two video previews for Saturday, would you believe? I'm going to do that in two parts, one with the sort of flat stuff and then one going into a bit more detail on the racing card. So with that, I'm not going to bore you to death by going through every race in massive detail. I'm going to tell you one or two that I'm sort of looking at and half fancying at the moment, and then you'll be able to sort of get them both in 25 minutes. You don't want me droning on for Christ knows how long. The flat stuff, interesting racing tomorrow, but how many races are betting races? I don't think there's that many personally, maybe 3 or 4. Obviously the Cambridge is of some interest, and I've had a couple of bets already. I think I might have done my money on at least one of them, because I was planning, looking at yesterday, I backed one horse that probably wants really soft ground, and it doesn't look really soft at Newmarket. I've been out most of the day, but I've just watched a couple of replays back and a couple of races live. There is a tailwind and it's probably going to dry it up a little bit, so I've probably done my money on at least one of them. Anyway, Haydock 205 first race, mile handicap, class 2, 0 to 105, good race. But there are a couple of interesting ones here that I'd sort of made a note of as potential late season horses that might be worth a look. They're both a big price. I've got a concern for the pair of them, and I'll tell you what that is as we go. The two are Crownthorpe, Richard Fahey's, and there's a yard that's going a bit better now. They double the strike rate that they were a week ago. They were around about 5%, and now 10. And Musterid of Ian Williams, both of whom last year won races late season on soft ground. For Crownthorpe, that was at York, and that might be the case again. It might be that he needs one more run to put him straight, and then he's on to York and he's off a mark that's very similar to last year or lower, and that might be where he goes and wins. And Musterid won late season at Nottingham off a mark of 84, hosed up that day. It was very impressive, and he's off 86 here after one or two moderate efforts on. There are excuses, I think, and if you look at a couple of Musterid's runs in the summer around July time, it all sort of looked, he's dropped out in races, never put in them. It looked very much like they were sort of trying to get the mark down a little bit, something that was a bit more workable. Gavin Ashton takes another 7 off tomorrow. It wouldn't surprise me. I'd probably end up having a small bet on them both at 16s. I do worry that there's not enough pace in the race. I think both of them would appreciate a strong pace, and that's the concern I've got. There are potential pacemakers, Just Hiss being one, who used to make the pace and then hasn't really for the sort of the last 3. He's been racing prominent but not really making the pace. And Hayad, Rebecca Bastinman's runner, who nearly made all at Beverley back in June, sort of was there alongside the leader most of the time, and that was similarly at Musselburgh when Hayad won last time, was sort of tracking the leaders. So I was concerned that there might not be enough pace for either of them. If they don't win tomorrow, I would still suggest that you sort of keep them in mind for late season handicaps, possibly at a slightly lower level, but they're both interesting to a point tomorrow. Next race I want to discuss was the 3 o'clock at Newmarket. This one being one of the better races of the day at Newmarket in terms of quality. This one being the Middle Park. I looked at the race, and the more I looked at the race, I thought, I'll tell you what, Charterhouse is overpriced here at 50 and 66. And then I sort of realised, of course, at the Middle Park, you're dropping back to 6 furlong, whereas I think Charterhouse probably wants to go up in trip on everything I've seen so far, and indeed on breeding. He's a half brother to a 12 furlong, a moderate 12 furlong all-weather winner, and the Dam Crocus Rose, a few of you might remember, stayed really well. And with that, I was sort of looking at Charterhouse going up in trip rather than coming back to 6. But he's got a couple of links to find with Lucky Vega on the national form at the Coral last time. And yes, I can appreciate Lucky Vega was unlucky Vega, really, probably that day, because Lucky Vega didn't get the best of runs. But even allowing for that, Charterhouse has got a couple of figures here. There's 2 of his 4 runs that sort of put him in line with the places, and as I say, it's just a pity it's not going up to a mile rather than dropping back to 6 tomorrow, because at that 66 really would look way too big. I might end up having if the dead 8 line up tomorrow, I might end up having a small each way bet on Charterhouse, but I want to see the dead 8 line up, and as I say, I'd be much happier at 7 furlong to a mile than I am at 6, but still the bet's there. 335 then the Cambridgeshire. As I say, I think I might have done my money on Majestic Dawn, and I know when I spoke to my good friend Mr. Roy Delargy about the race, and there were 3 I was sort of playing around with. Majestic Dawn was one, and a couple of horses that finished not too far away last year in 5th position as well. Majestic Dawn was 5th in the race, I should say, last year, and 5th position was the other one I was looking at, along with Lucanda, who beat 5th position at York last time. 5th position ran in the race last year and finished 8th. And I was just thinking that softer ground this year might get 5th position a lot closer. I don't think, as I say, I think there's some cut in there, but I'm not massively convinced that there's enough cut for 5th position. Tempest and Lucanda as well was the other one that, I say, beat 5th position at York last time. Has gone up £4 for that, which I thought was entirely fair. But again, Lucanda's fine on good ground, but he just seems better and happier on soft. And the way that Lucanda won at York, as I say, it was a mile 2.5, and didn't lead till late on, rather suggests that any sort of finishing effort on ground that will probably be, not much softer than good tomorrow. And with the tailwind as well, the effort might come too late. The interesting one outside of those two, the interesting two, I should say, one was Balgare, who I know you're sort of going on amateur riders form, which can be very misleading, but that was a really good time figure that Balgare clocked over course and distance last week when beating Biotic. And Biotic's a fairly decent sort of yardstick in those amateur rider races with Joanna Mason on, where Biotic finishes. You know you've had a good run race when Biotic's in the frame, because he inevitably drops himself out and comes with a late run. And he was, take Balgare out and Biotic would have been a ready winner, and he panned Biotic 6 lengths. Now, he's only got a penalty to carry for that. He's got a £4 penalty. Effectively, he's off £6 high because he's been put up 2. So 86 is what he's off tomorrow, which looks high enough, but it was pretty much a career best last week. Of course, there are loads of question marks. One, can he take a quick turnaround? I think he can. I don't think that's too big an issue. And can he do it again in a better race is the big question. If he's a daft price, if he drifts to a daft price, I might end up backing Balgare as the ground continues to dry up. Twice he's been taken out on soft ground as a non-runner. He doesn't want cut, so the more it dries, the better Balgare's chance, I think. And the other one that I looked at, Tempest is going to go off one of the favourites for this, if not the favourite. But the horse that Tempest beat last time at Ascot, Walhan, again caught the eye, not for the first time this season either. He caught the eye at Ascot back in July. He caught the eye a bit at York over in Marby and Montatham. And it's interesting that his best run, when he wasn't with Ian Williams, when he was over in France with Boudot, came over 9 furlongs. Arguably on the figures, his best run came over 9 furlongs. He won't mind some cut. I think the extra furlong will help. He's not particularly better off at the weights with Tempest. He's got a bit of weight back, but it all looks a little bit plotty to me with Ian Williams. He's very good at laying him out for handicaps. Stall 1 could be brilliant, could be awful. I'm hoping that Stall 1, there isn't a lot of pace among the low numbers. I can see a split coming around sort of Stall 10, Stall 11. I can see Good Birthday and them going sort of middle high, and there being about a pocket of about 9 runners coming low. So we'll see. So Stall 1 could be brilliant. It could be absolutely awful. He could win his group and finish 10th. So we'll see. But in an open race, I think at the moment, I've already backed Majestic Dawn. But the worry now for me is that it's just not going to be anywhere soft enough for Majestic Dawn. 5th in the race last year, and he's £5 high this time around. As I only had one run this season. That was at Kempton a couple of weeks ago to blow the cobwebs away. Blinker's first time is a good angle for Paul Cole horses So there's a bit to like about Majestic Dawn. I have already bet it, as I say. I bet it at 40s each way. But I wanted more rain, and I think with that I'm probably going to end up backing Walhan and possibly either or Balgame 5th position. We'll see. The only other race that I'm interested in on the flat comes after that, 410. Not normally a player in nurseries, me, but there was one here that sort of caught the eye a little bit, and even more so after this afternoon, I have to say, because Marco Botti's yard seemed to have struck a little bit of form, and Stefano Church is riding well, and with that I thought the unexposed on turf Colorando off a Marca 69 might be quite interesting. As I say, it's had 3 goes so far, Colorando. She's had 3 runs, one at Lingfield, one at Chelmsford, one at Wolverhampton, all over 6 furlong, all of which look like she wants a 7th furlong, and she gets that here. The form of the race isn't working out too badly. The Wolverhampton race was won by Bailey's Breathless. The second Electric Blue was a bit disappointing next time, got beaten at odds on at Catterick. I'm not entirely sure Catterick was Electric Blue's track. Back in the field that day was Source of Wealth, who finished 6th. Now Source of Wealth has come out and won a little race since. I think it was a seller. It was a seller. Won a seller at Wolverhampton, but won it well. Won it by a good couple of lengths from a horse that was rated 65. So that would sort of suggest that a Marca 69 for Colorando is perfectly fair. And the run before that at Chelmsford, that's working out too. Judy Johnson won that. Black Sparrow was 3rd. He's won a couple of races, or she has, I should say, since. The form of that's all right. The form of it's okay. It's the angles of going up to 7 furlongs for a yard that's in form and unexposed on turf that are the angles that I quite like here. Stall 6 is fine. There is some pace around. There's plenty of pace around actually in this. The more I looked at this race, it has the potential of being run at a very, very strong pace, I think. And that, again, everything sort of points to that suiting Colorando. Loads of question marks, of course, the fact that, he's never raced at Newmarket. She hasn't, I should say, never raced at Newmarket. But equally, that could be a plus point, that she is unexposed on turf. So I like the mark. Yard going well. Double figure price. Yeah, I'll have a bet on that as well. And that's probably about it on the flat. I don't really like a lot else. The Ripon card made little appeal. There were a couple of races that were half interesting until I looked, and there was no pace whatsoever in a couple of them. And there are a couple of interesting runners on the card. Up it's making the 5 furlong handicap, but I don't think the drop back to 5 and Ripon will really suit Up it's Mick. So I'm happy to sort of sit and wait for another day. That'll be it for the flat. As I say, I'm going to do one in a minute for the market raising card, which is a little bit more in depth and hopefully a bit more interesting. Cheers, guys.